Yeah, elevate women's veterans, sisterhood, love, and support for all women who served. Yeah. Triumph, hardship, perseverance in the fight to win. A million times out in that field, we just survived again, climbed again. We deserve respect, we put our time in. It's only right we elevate. Yeah. This is Elevate Women Veterans with your host, Ebony Gray.
Welcome to Elevate Women Veterans Podcast, where we shine a light on the incredible stories of women who served. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Gray, and I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. April Dobson, a remarkable veteran with a story to share, and also my co author for A Guide to Unlocking Federal Employment, Identifying and Developing Your Path for Success. Dr.
Good evening, Dr. Ebony. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you on today. So, Dr. Ebony, there was an issue with the audio on my end, so I missed the last portion of your statement.
Is it do I need to get closer to the mic? April, are you able to hear me? Yes, I can hear myself. Mic check, mic check. Dr. Dobson, are you still in the building?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, so she can hear me now.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your military background.
Absolutely. So I have the distinct pleasure of serving in the United States Air Force. I served in the Air Force for 11 years. And as many of our viewers may not be aware, that was how you and I originally crossed paths. And so during Air Force Technical Training School in 1998. So I spent, again, like I mentioned before, 11 years in the United States Air Force. And I had the pleasure of being stationed in a variety of locations, including Germany, Mississippi, my home state, Texas, Illinois, and Nebraska at Offutt Air Force Base.
So thank you. And yes, we have truly been Air Force sisters since it seems like infancy.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I want to dive into, because we're targeting women veterans, talk to me about your military transition and how your transition from the military into the civilian workforce transpired.
Thank you. So for me, I had a medical evaluation board, and that was my reason for leaving the Air Force. I probably would have stayed in and done the 20-year career. That wasn't my path. And for me, I had a desire to transition to a different career post military. And so I took some time to work on just improving with myself and ensuring that I had improved health prior to transitioning into the workforce. But when I transitioned into the workforce, I transitioned into an HR career. I had a desire from I would say the midpoint in my, or after my first duty station, going to my second duty station is when I decided that I was going to switch careers post military, whenever that might be. And so I had the misconception that because I had one specific career, and as other Air Force folks know, an Air Force Specialty Code, AFSC, that if I was going to transition into something different as a civilian, that I would need to start from the bottom and work my way up. And, that wasn't the case. It wasn't necessary. But that's what I did because of, what I didn't know. And so I love to share information with individuals so that they don't have misconceptions that they use to apply for their experiences. But in any regard, I started in a human resources assistant position. And from that position, I ended up, and that was with the Department of the Army. And I ended up later transitioning to the Department of the Air Force and had administrative and HR roles initially. And then I decided to pursue the Presidential Management Fellows Program, which was an excellent opportunity. And as a Presidential Management Fellow, I served at the Social Security Administration headquarters in Woodlawn, Maryland. Post the PMF program, I accepted a position with the Department of the Navy and was with the Department of the Navy for several years. And during that time, I ended up going to work at the Pentagon for the Department of the Navy and HR. From there, I went to Peterson Air Force Base in an HR role there, where I started as the lead and then became the chief of staffing and recruitment. Shortly after leaving the Department of the Air Force to pursue some opportunities in the private sector, I returned to the federal government and accepted a position in the DC area with Department of Treasury IRS at headquarters. And from there, I ended up receiving a promotion to work in policy and did that for several years until beginning my current position as a branch chief within policy. So I've had an excellent career, and anything that I can share and anything that I can do to help others to succeed and find their path, I do. And so I'm very excited that you and I are co-authoring a book that will help people to do just that.
And wow, you've had a very extensive career and diverse career. So, speaking of that, and especially since we both come from the Air Force background, can you give some advice to transitioning service members on maybe steps they can take to help them to cross over into the civilian path?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that service members should consider is, what are they truly passionate about? What do they truly love doing? What do they feel that they were, with their purpose to do? I think sometimes people serve in the military, and we as service members, we make sacrifices. I think every veteran knows that. And post military, some people decide to continue on the same career path during their military service that they had. And I don't think that's the approach that people should use. So I think people should really take some time to reflect. They should take some time to ensure that they're exposed to an opportunity to explore professions. I know there are programs that allow military members to do internships, but certainly, aside from that, there's the opportunity to volunteer in the community while you're an active duty service member to give yourself some exposure of what you truly love. And I think one of the biggest things that military members should consider is how to appropriately articulate the experiences that they have on their resume. Many private sector organizations aren't familiar with the military jargon. And so it's important to take that experience that you have and translate it into the right verbiage that's used in the private sector. For military members who are seeking federal government opportunities, it's very important to ensure that um, they're focusing on the organizations and the agencies that align with what they believe is truly important. So I think ensuring that they have that exposure, one, to what interests them, and ensuring that they can articulate their experiences appropriately for all audiences, and then seeking out those opportunities that align with what they feel passionate about and what they feel purpose to do. I think those are some key things that military members can do as they're preparing to transition from the military.
And if there's one thing that you wish you knew prior to transitioning from the Air Force into civilian life, what would that be?
I think the one thing that I wish that I knew is that you don't have to start over just because you're starting a new career. So I have a dear friend who said, we don't build from scratch, we build from experience. And so it doesn't matter if you're transitioning into a different type of career post military, you can still use those experiences that you had in the military to leverage to start at a senior level, either outside of the military, at a private sector organization, or in the federal government. So it's all about being able to ensure that those experiences are appropriately captured in your resume, and that you're able to communicate that in interviews and in networking opportunities. So that's the thing that I wish that I would have known, that I didn't have to start from the bottom just because I was switching careers, because all of my experiences were relevant to what I do today.
And I think you make a key point. Over the past 3 months, I've talked to hundreds of military veterans and spouses. And that's the one myth that if they transition, let's say into IT or cyber, they have to start from ground zero. And it completely negates the fact that they have 15 to 20 years experience as a manager, as a leader in their workforce, and they have such a diverse background that will be an asset to any civilian profession, any organization, any business, any corporation, any federal job. They don't have to start from GS1 or from ground level 0.
Right.
So with that, let's get into your why. So you and I are planning to co-author a guide to unlocking federal employment, identifying and developing your path to success. What's your why behind that? What's your motivation to help others to land their dream job?
Well, for me, I've always loved helping people. It's been something that, I can say just from a child, I've loved helping people. But, in through my experiences in the military is when I discovered that I have a passion about HR. I have a passion about developing people. I have a passion about helping people to come up with a plan to achieve what they're dreaming about professionally. And so I think a lot of people have a job because they feel that that's what they need to do. And I believe that's the wrong approach. I think people should do what they love. And so I think in co-authoring this book with you, we're able to reach people who we may not be able to talk to on a day-to-day basis, and really give them a clear um, path and a clear approach to really identify the appropriate path for them that aligns with their purpose and passion, and to give them a way that they can actually achieve that.
And that's perfect. So speaking of special pathways, the one question that I get all the time is how do you enter the federal government? So can you discuss briefly some of the unique pathways that a person can take in order to enter the federal government outside of USA Jobs?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I'm going to talk about first, because we have a lot of veterans, who may or may not be aware of some of the opportunities and the programs and the hiring authorities that are available for them. So, any 30% or more disabled veteran has a hiring preference. The Department of Veterans Affairs provides a letter to those veterans indicating that they have the hiring preference. So, they can work directly with a I'm going to say for if you're going to a Department of the Air Force civilian entity, a civilian personnel office, or if you're looking at Department of the Army, a CPOC, you can work directly with the HR offices and staff members within an agency. Share that letter that you have with your resume, your DD 214 and SF 15. And most agencies can actually initiate a personnel action for an appointment using that 30% or more disabled veteran letter with the other documents that I just mentioned. Another option is Schedule A, appointing authority. So if anyone just goes to Google and searches Schedule A, you can see the template for a Schedule A letter. But that's another option for individuals who have a Schedule A disability. They can take the Schedule A letter with their resume and any other uh, requirements of supporting documents, and that can also be used for an appointment as well. There are also other programs that allow individuals who are transitioning out of the military to have experience. There's a Wounded Warriors program that allows individuals to partner with different organizations to sort of have an internship, sort of, if you will, as a service member as they're transitioning out. And it gives an opportunity for a transition there. You have the Presidential Management Fellows Program, which is a program that I had the distinct pleasure of being a 2014 Presidential Management Fellow. Those opportunities are typically open once a year. And the application for that is in a separate system. So, those are just a few approaches that an individual can use to transition into the federal government outside of USA Jobs. Additionally, there are some agencies who are even using LinkedIn and using their agency website to announce positions. So you definitely want to do your research, and you want to reach out to HR professionals at agencies that you're interested in securing a position with and inquiring about their opportunities. And then finally, last but not least, a lot of agencies have career fairs, job fairs, and recruiting events that they use to attract new talent. So those are just a few ways that individuals can look for opportunities outside of USA Jobs.
And I like that you just emphasized the hiring fairs. So, number one, on USA Jobs, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see events. And within those events are most of the time the resume writing workshops and sometimes the hiring fairs. The IRS has been hiring expeditiously over the past few months, but other agencies I've seen the EPA, HHS, multiple agencies on USA Jobs promoting their hiring events and their resume writing events. Also for veterans, we do have Hiring Our Heroes, which is a big agency, nonprofit agency committed to hiring our heroes and military spouses. And the big thing is show up, right? Show up to those hiring affairs or those hiring fairs and talk to the HR people, talk to the recruiters. I've seen directors actually pop up at the hiring fairs. Let them know that you're there, let them know that you're interested in working at that particular agency and follow up with your resume, with your DD Form 214, with any of the applicable paperwork so that you can actually submit and get the job. And also, there's agencies like the National Security Agency or intelligence agencies. So you can go to intelligencecareers.gov and look for jobs that may not necessarily be on USA Jobs. And also, another agency, FDIC, has jobs that aren't necessarily listed on USA Jobs. So that's other ways that you can reach outside the box. And networking. You can look on LinkedIn and see who's connected to HHS or SSA or IRS, and connect with people and see, do you have opportunities? Would you be willing to do an informational interview with me? Would you be able to help me navigate into your agency? And April, who is a PMF graduate, if you are maybe perplexed about how to fill out the paperwork or how to go about the process, find somebody that's an alum of that particular PMF program, ask to meet with them, ask for an info session so you can get information, and ask them to help you.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Ebony, Dr. Ebony.
And I really, really, really am super proud of you. Like, you elevated up the ranks in being a government civilian. What's some advice or tips for those that land the job? Like, what are some keys to being successful in a federal government?
That's a great question, Dr. Ebony. I think one of the things that I would say, and I'm going to first say that there are some points that are important for success, regardless if you're inside or outside of the federal government. One of the most important things is to have a clear vision of where you are heading. You want to know what it is that you want to achieve, and you want to have that vision on paper. And you want to ensure that you have clear, succinct, written SMART goals. And that will help to focus your efforts. And then your efforts should align with the goals that you have. As far as the federal government is concerned, there are a variety of um, career ladder opportunities, there are development programs, there's a myriad of opportunities. And so each agency has different programs to develop their talent. And so you want to ensure that you're um, actively looking at what your agency offers and what other agencies offer in the way of development. A lot of agencies have candidate development programs for individuals who are interested in becoming an SES at some point in their career. There are other leadership opportunities. I know you talked about informational interviews, Dr. Ebony, and that's another thing I think that's key for someone's success in or outside of the federal government. And then it's also important to have mentors. I think having multiple mentors matter. Many times there are individuals who have already achieved what you have a desire to achieve. And so finding mentors who are willing to, take you under their wing and who are willing to give you insight and advice, I think is crucial. But if you know that you want to advance your career, then it's important to see what programs your agency offers. And you can also research other things that are available government wide. And you want to apply for those opportunities. You want to ensure that you're keeping a very good record of your accomplishments, and that you're updating your resume on a regular, recurring basis, and ensuring that you've captured your accomplishments, from a quantitative and a qualitative standpoint. But those are just some things that people can do to grow and advance their career, both inside and outside of the federal government.
And thank you for that, Dr. April. And I would like to point out, myself and April, we have achieved educational milestones. I can tell you, because I think that's one of the myths, that you need your education in order to enter into the federal government. I would say to you, yes, for certain positions, you need specific degrees or certifications or experience. But the biggest thing is to check and verify the requirements for the position, because in some positions it could be education or experience, or it could be a combination of education and experience, or for some positions, it may not require education at all. It could just be experience, or maybe you have a specific certification or skill set. So don't discount yourself just because you don't have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a doctorate. Really look at the requirements for that position. And this goes for the federal government, this goes for the state, this goes for local government agencies, and also for private and civilian providers. Look and see what their requirements are. Do not discount yourself just because you haven't achieved the highest educational milestones.
That's a great point, Dr. Ebony, and I do want to highlight, because we've talked both about, private sector and the federal government. I do want to highlight that within the federal government there are certain grade caps. If a person is being considered only for their education, there are certain grade caps. And so, the experience is critical. And you're right, there are some positions that require a positive, they have an education requirement and experience. But the baseline for most federal government opportunities is 52 weeks of experience. And the federal government gives credit for both paid and unpaid experience. So if you spent 5 years volunteering and you were, involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion for your organization or for your installation, that counts as experience, even if it was an additional duty. And I know most people who have served in the military, you have some additional duty in addition to whatever your primary AFSC or MOS or, rate, rank, whatever that might be. So it's very important to ensure that in your resume, you are documenting any experience that you have, paid or unpaid.
And I love that you mentioned the volunteer experience. Oftentimes, I work with military spouses, and many times they have to quit their jobs or maybe didn't work the whole entire time their spouse was serving in the military. They were overseas, they were raising the children. So sometimes you have to quantify that experience in order to get in the door, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have any work experience, it doesn't mean that you don't have any experience in life. You're the CEO of your life. You're the CEO of your household. Sometimes the CFO, right? Managing the finances, logistics, transportation, coordinating and arranging to move from place to place, conflict management with the children and spouses sometimes. Volunteer organizations, if you were involved with the PTA or volunteered at the Family Support Center, all of that can be translated onto your resume as experience.
That's a great point, Dr. Ebony, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I think you did an excellent job in covering a lot of the um, areas that a lot of military spouses and dependents normally have as, something that they've done that may not be paid experience. And there's one other that I do want to highlight, that I often hear that people have done and they don't really mention it, and that's caregiving. There are a lot of people who take care of elderly parents or, children or parents who have a disability or a condition, or they have wounded warriors, spouses who were injured in military service, and they're a caregiver. And I think that, that experience is relevant. And so I just wanted to highlight that in addition to the areas that you mentioned that military spouses and dependents often do and have experience in, and it's unpaid. So thank you for listing those areas. I just wanted to add that one.
Yes, and both of our points, and thank you, Dr. April. But both of our points is that your experience is valuable. You can use your experience to successfully transition into a federal career or into the private sector. It's just important that you understand how to highlight your skills and experience. And again, education is so important, but it is not a necessity per se in order to land the job. I can tell you, you can get in the door through networking, right? Networking, getting to know people, going through the mentorship programs like ACP and Veterati that's offered to military veterans, they help you to meet and connect the right people. They help you to develop a plan in order to be successful in landing the right job, not just any job, but the right job.
Absolutely. And before we pivot, Dr. Ebony, I do want to mention because you and I have both talked about tonight about how to, about ensuring that the experience is appropriately articulated. And sometimes people just aren't aware of how to articulate that experience. And one of the tips that I provide to people on a regular basis is if you aren't sure what to list, go peruse LinkedIn. Look at people's profiles based on the type of opportunity that you're interested in transitioning into or receiving a promotion for. Look to see what people are indicating on their LinkedIn profiles and see if you have any of that experience. Pull up job descriptions for the types of positions that you're interested in and take a look at those requirements to see if you in your volunteer experience, in your coursework, in any of the experiences that you have, paid or unpaid, have exposure and have experience in any of those areas. And and then also ask people if they'll give you feedback. See if you can have someone do a 360 interview with you and share with you some of the things that they've observed that you've done professionally and that you're good at. Go back and look at your prior performance evaluations. Take a look at all of those things, and then see if you've ever, for any volunteer work, look at any letters of appreciation that you've been given that highlight your contributions to that organization. There's so many different tools and resources that you can use to ensure that you're appropriately articulating the experience and the exposure that you've had.
And I thank you, Dr. April. And I appreciate that you mentioned LinkedIn because LinkedIn is key, right? It's crucial in order to connect with other professionals or people within your network or to get to know people at these federal agencies or private sector agencies. LinkedIn is a great way to connect. So make sure that you do actually update your LinkedIn page. Make sure that you are adding your valid experience and use LinkedIn to gain additional experience through LinkedIn Learning. One thing that I also would like to highlight is I am an advocate for AI, meaning ChatGPT and other AI tools to help you to enhance your resume. So sometimes you just don't know what to say, or sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So use ChatGPT and Claude and other AI tools to say, this is my experience. I'm trying to pursue this particular position, or you can upload the job description, look at my experience, and customize my resume in order to apply for this experience. Now, you will need to still review that data that ChatGPT or AI produces, but it's a great way to help you get unstuck if you don't know how to figure it out or don't know where to go with your resume. And even with the resume format, because I get that question a lot, use AI. Ask AI to create your resume based off of your experience to apply for that particular position, and also use like the mentorship organizations to ask your mentor to help you with your resume. And for the military, you can use Hiring Our Heroes. They'll help you to produce a resume so you don't have to worry about being alone. Also, for USA Jobs, they have a resume template. That is the number one question. How do I do a federal resume? You know, the best way is to actually use USA Jobs and go step by step with the resume builder and build your resume out. Now, April, we are nearing the end of our time together. So I want to end with any words of wisdom that you have for our listeners.
So I think one of the things that I would say as a words of wisdom would be pursue your purpose and your passion. It's very important to do something that you love and you enjoy. There's no need in finding a job to have a job. You want to do what you love. Find ways to pursue purpose and passion. Find ways to give back. Find ways to help others. I think we all, have something that we can say, multiple things that we can say that we are, areas that we're blessed. And I think if we reflect on our lives, we can look back and say that, we've always had, the opportunity and the pleasure for God to put someone in our path to help us with somewhere we were heading. And so I really encourage you all to give back, find opportunities to give back, and ensure that what you're doing aligns with what you're passionate about and what you feel purpose to do. I think those are the words that my words of wisdom. So don't be afraid to dream and don't be afraid to go after what you're dreaming about.
And thank you so much, Dr. April Dobson, for joining me today. Again, we are co-authoring a guide to unlocking federal employment, identifying and developing your path for success. But Dr. Dobson, is there any other information or any other projects that you're working on that you want the audience to know about or support?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebony. I want to say first, thank you so much for taking the time this evening to speak with me. Thank you for allowing me to be a special guest tonight. I do just want to share that I have a book that I co-authored with Dr. Neil Hambright. It's called The Autonomous Career: Freedom of Time and Space in Your Chosen Workplace. And it's a book that gives readers an opportunity to answer questions within the book. And the book allows them to create a customized plan to build the business or the career that they're dreaming about. That book is available on Amazon. It can also be requested at Barnes and Noble and Books a Million for the Books a Million stores that are still open. And I'm also working on another book presently that is a guide to help leaders with employee engagement. And so I'm very excited about that. But thank you again for the opportunity. And there's a couple of other projects that I'm working on, but those are the ones that I'd like to share this evening. So thank you.
And how can our listeners follow you and support you?
So I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And so on Facebook, they can either, I'm on Facebook as April D. Dobson. I have a page. I also have, for, folks who want to connect with me on Instagram, Dr. April D. Dobson. And then I do have a website as well. So those are the ways that individuals can follow and connect with me.
So thank you so much, Dr. April Dobson. I truly appreciate the time that you spent with myself and the listeners tonight. And thank you to all the listeners that tuned in. And for those that are listening in the future, thank you. Please do not forget to follow us at Elevate Women Veterans on all social media platforms, and look forward to hearing from us every first and third Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you the third Wednesday of this month. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, elevate women's veterans sisterhood, love and support for all women who served. Yeah. Triumph, hardship, perseverance in the fight to win. A million times out in that field, we just survived again, climbed again. We deserve respect, we put our time in. It's only right we elevate. Yeah. This is Elevate Women Veterans with your host, Ebony Gray.